impressive individuals that can be tapped on a short notice to come to the defense of Israel, no matter what Israel does. And nobody else, I shouldn't say nobody else is on the other side, but people working the U.S. national interests are not nearly as numerous and as effective as those for the State of Israel. It was a book called Assault on the Liberty, written by a man named James Ennis, who had been the deck officer when the USS Liberty, which was an intelligence-gathering ship off the coast of Egypt in June of 1967, came under assault by Israeli military forces. Now, we were already sympathetic to Israel as a government. Lyndon Johnson was president. He was secretly providing a lot of help to the Israeli cause. But nevertheless, for whatever reason, the government of Israel decided that our spy ship, our intelligence-gathering ship, the USS Liberty, had to be destroyed. They were almost toward the end of their war. They had decided privately, secretly, that they were going to assault Syria the next day. The only valid explanation I can come up with for the horrendous misdeeds they committed that day in June. They had broad daylight. They had constant ships around the USS Liberty, aircraft around USS Liberty, over a period of several hours. And then they assaulted Liberty in bright daylight with the American flag streaming in a brisk breeze all the time. They used napalm, dropping it on the deck to burn some of the sailors alive. They used torpedo ships to blast holes in the deck, or in the side of the ship. Over 40. Somehow, the ship survived. It didn't sink. The Israeli fighter aircraft even shot to pieces life rafts that were put in the water when the Captain McGonigal thought, well, we're going to have to abandon ship. Well, they didn't have any life rafts to use for the abandonment, and they kept the ship afloat miraculously during the night. One of the radio operators was able to rig up a device to send an SOS out, asking for help. They knew that the U.S. carrier aircraft were nearby. And the captain of one of the carriers launched some fighter aircraft in the air and headed them to the rescue of the USS Liberty when he received orders from the White House in Washington to get the aircraft back on the deck, which, of course, he had to do. From that day forward, despite the fact that 32 U.S. sailors were killed in broad daylight by a nation that had such a deep obligation to the American government, and over 150 were injured, despite all that, our government decided to clamp secrecy on it in every way possible. The survivors were told never to talk to a reporter about what had happened. Their testimony was not even requested when they had a so-called hearing, a hearing that the principals later on testified was full of lies, was a misrepresentation of what actually happened. Our government, for whatever reason, decided to try to keep the whole thing quiet, and they have succeeded to an alarming extent to this very day. It ranks as one of the worst peacetime disasters the U.S. And yet, nobody in Congress has been willing to call hearings to lay the facts before the American people. It's one of the sad relationship with Israel. Fortunately, the crewmen are never say-die type. They have an organization. They do all they can to keep the episode alive, to make more people, American people, aware of it. And I believe the time will come before all of them die off and they will have a proper hearing. They have certainly done all they could to bring it to public light. And if the American people knew what happened that day, fundamental, quick change in U.S. policy toward the State of Israel, not to shut the door to Israel, but to put our relationship on a balanced basis instead of the total bias in favor of Israel that prevails today. There's a lot of argument over whether it was mistaken identity on the part of Israel. That theory has been shot to pieces year after year, nevertheless, because Israel has a big stake here. They know that if the truth were USS Liberty in June '67, the American people would be up in arms. Documentation has come to light. And it proves without a doubt that the fighter aircraft under order ship were informed headquarters that it was an American ship, and one of them said, this is murder. This is murder of American sailors. So it was known. Maybe they thought beating Syria to the Golan Heights was worth the loss of American lives. But to me, it was a colossal disgrace to the State of Israel to have that on their record, and I don't think they can ever do anything to make full amends for it.